Hello and welcome to today's eBay for Business webinar on international expansion. My name is Hannah Hardiman and I'll be your host and presenter today. Now, before we get started, there's something important to note which is going to improve the quality of the presentation at your end. Please make sure that you're not running any programs, downloads, updates in the background which are using up bandwidth. They are likely to slow down the streaming of the presentation. If you share your internet connection with other people, please ask them to also do the same. And if you're watching from home and anyone in your household is downloading music, watching TV or movies on demand, or playing online games, it's likely to slow down the video. So let's get started. Let's look at who this webinar is for. Now, in putting together the content for any webinar, it is impossible for us to get it absolutely right for everyone listening in. So we've pitched the content of today's webinar at an intermediate to advanced level and made sure that the content is relevant for people who are running a business on eBay rather than private users of the site who might be selling items from time to time. So we've assumed that you're an established eBay seller. You're selling primarily on ebay.co.uk, but you would like to expand internationally. We've also assumed that you're looking for ways to grow your business. Other things that we've taken into account is that you already know how to list and to sell on eBay, and most importantly, you're open to taking action on what you've learned. It's one thing to listen to a webinar and think, oh, that was nice, I've learned something new, but it's something else to actually put it into action, because it's action that's going to make a difference to everybody's businesses. So let's look at what we'll be covering today. Firstly, we'll be looking at the international selling opportunity. There's a lot of potential for us selling internationally on eBay, and it's a great vehicle for doing it. We'll look at different ways of listing and selling internationally. We'll talk about using the global shipping program, which if you're just getting started on international selling is by far the easiest route to take. We'll look at how using international postage rate tables can save you time, and we'll run through some important points to note regardless of how you're going to be selling internationally. We run many webinars like this for business sellers on eBay, and if you'd like to see what we've already covered in our webinars, the URL is up on the screen now, so http://sellercenter.ebay.co.uk/business/webinars, and you'll see the replays of all of the webinars that we've done so far. Everything from how to optimize your listings for the search results through to selling through promotions manager and markdown manager, and all those sorts of things that can help you to grow. So if you want to see any of those replays, just go to that page. You can also find it by going to the Seller Center and searching for webinars. So, eBay internationally is opening up a world of selling and growth opportunities. When you sell on eBay, you're tapping into a global network connecting buyers and sellers around the world. eBay is one of the world's most vibrant and the largest marketplaces out there. So 190 markets worldwide, 167 million buyers. You may be thinking that you're doing okay selling on ebay.co.uk, but actually there are many, many more buyers who are located outside of the UK. So if you really want to expand on eBay, looking internationally is the way to go. And with over 1 billion live listings globally, eBay is a destination for millions of shoppers all around the world. While eBay used to be primarily known as a place to buy used items at auction, it's evolved over time. And now 81% of items on the site are new, brand new, and around 87% are listed at a fixed price. You probably already know about ebay.co.uk and ebay.com, but not everybody realizes just how many local eBay sites there are. And here are just a few of them. We've got plenty of sites in Europe, and also if you're looking to expand to English-speaking countries around the world, there's an Australian site and a Canadian site, as well as the standard US ebay.com. And when there isn't a local eBay site, buyers in over 200 countries go to ebay.com to buy. And if you want to get listed on ebay.com, you can do that by listing on ebay.co.uk, as long as you're specifying an international postage service and you specify postage costs. to those countries. And you can use GSP, the Global Shipping Program, to do that. So if you want to reach buyers in Russia or China, just make sure that it's going onto eBay.com by making sure that you're doing the international postage service to those countries or opting into the Global Shipping Program. And when it comes to the export opportunity on eBay, the top 5 countries that UK sellers are exporting to, and the first one probably won't surprise you, the United States, but the other top markets, France, Italy, Germany, they're huge across Europe, and also Australia. 90% of UK sellers on eBay have exported their products to other markets. And what we're seeing is an average of 16% increase in sales volume when you do international trade. What are people buying internationally? Well, fashion and tech categories are the strongest ones for international sales right now. You might be wondering what you could achieve by selling on eBay. Well, here's an example of a UK seller who was selling on ebay.co.uk and ebay.ie, which is our site in Ireland. And then they also started selling through the French, Spanish, Italian, German and Polish sites and saw a dramatic increase in the year-on-year sales. So it really is opening up opportunities for sellers just like you. So, how do we get started with selling internationally on eBay? Well, there are 2 ways to sell internationally on eBay. And we split them here into basic international selling and advanced international selling. Basic international selling is very easy to do. You sell on ebay.co.uk as normal, and then you have international postage options offered on your listings. The advanced version is where you would then create a new listing directly on an international eBay site, such as ebay.de, which is our German site, another big market in Europe. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, when you're doing basic international sellings, your listings will still appear in English, no matter which country the buyer is in. When you sell directly on the site, you've got the option to create a fresh listing in the local language. So you could be doing your German listings in German. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later on. So with international postage options, how it would work with the different types of selling. With basic international selling, you can use the Global Shipping Program. With the Global Shipping Program, you just send it to an address in the UK and then it's forwarded on from there to your buyer internationally. Or you can set your own international postage costs, and that way you'd be sending direct to your buyer. Or what a lot of people are doing these days is using the Global Shipping Program for some countries and then your usual postage carrier or international carrier for other international markets. Now, some people may decide that they're a little bit cautious about selling into new countries, so they like to give it a try, but using the Global Shipping Program first, because you do get some added protections with that. Maybe once they're established, I think, okay, Russian buyers aren't so bad, I'm going to send them direct, because it might turn out to be a little bit cheaper for my buyers. So it's really up to you. Think about the level of caution you want to have when you're expanding internationally, and also think about the stage that your business is at with its international selling. Now, if you use advanced international selling, and that's where you're listing directly on the other sites, you need to send it directly there yourself. So start off with the basic international selling. You've got some options on postage, and I'm going to talk you through each of those and how they work. And then if you decide that you want to start listing on other sites in the local language, you'll just need to set up your own postage costs to do that. So regardless of how you're getting started internationally, there's a few things you need to have in place. So you do have to have an eBay account, and it's got to be in good standing. We want to make sure that you're ready to expand internationally. So if you've fallen below standard, you may need to get your domestic eBay operations sorted out before you start thinking about taking on other countries as well. Obviously, you need to have a PayPal account and be PayPal verified. It's also a good idea if you've already switched on accepting international payments on PayPal. You also need to meet the selling and item requirements of the site where you want your listings to appear. And there are some local variations. Some products are permitted in certain countries but prohibited in others. So it's worth having a look at what's actually allowed on the sites where you want to list. You also need to accept the International Selling Agreement, which has got information about PayPal payment holds, money-back guarantee policies, payment authorizations, buyer reimbursements. And when you try to list internationally on eBay for the first time, you're prompted to accept the International Selling Agreement. So if you've sold internationally already, you've probably already done that. So let's go into a little bit more detail on basic international selling and how it works. So the listing process is very easy. You just create one listing and that's shown across multiple international sites. With the pricing, you set a single price, which is then converted by eBay into the local currency, and that's based on the exchange rate on the day. What your buyer will see internationally is that if they're looking on another site, let's say they're looking from the French site, they'll see the price displayed in euros, which is a rough approximation of what it would be, and then you've got the UK price shown as well. If you've been shopping yourself on eBay, you've probably seen this happening the other way as well. So on the UK site, you'll see prices displayed in pounds, but then you might have seen it in US dollars or in euros as well. So that's the experience that your buyers will have. When it comes to search visibility, it's still going to appear in the default search results, and you may have seen this as a buyer yourself, that when you search it on ebay.co.uk for an item, you may have a mixture of items being sold by UK sellers and sellers in other markets. And you can then decide if you want to set the location to just look at ones that are in your own country, or you may be quite happy to look internationally. And your international buyers have got that option as well, so they can filter out listings that are from sellers who are not in their own country. Translation, well, with the basic international selling, it's going to appear in the language that you've set the listing up in. So it's going to be appearing in English, which is great because a lot of countries, English is very well spoken. In some, it's not, but this is a good way to start. With the fees, you pay the appropriate ebay.co.uk selling fees for that listing. So it's very straightforward. Now, I mentioned the global shipping program as being an easy way to start selling internationally. So if you are new to this, or you want some added seller protection for some countries, the easiest way to get started is using global shipping program, or GSP. So we're going to show you later on in the presentation how you can expand your international capabilities by adding GSP, but also how you can use this in combination with your own postage options. So the way that it works is that you would list your item exactly as you do for a domestic UK buyer. But you just select the box in the listing form to make it available to international buyers through the global shipping program. Now, if your item sells to an international buyer, you just send it to the UK shipping centre, and that address will appear as the buyer address, and it has a unique identifier that enables the UK shipping centre to match it to the order from the buyer. And they will then take care of the international leg of the journey. So they will then put the correct address on there for the buyer and send it on. And it's all sent tracked postage. eBay takes care of everything for you once it arrives there safely. So you just need to think about the domestic postage cost. The international part of the journey is calculated automatically by eBay, and that is what your buyer is going to see. So you only have to specify your domestic postage cost when your item sells, and you send it on to the shipping centre. So for example, if you're listing an iPhone through GSP and the item was £100 and you've got £5 domestic postage, an international buyer will see the total postage cost. So that will include any customs or duties payable if they're a customer who's outside of the EU. The buyer then pays that full amount, and you get paid the item price and the domestic postage cost. Now, if you've included free postage, then obviously you've bundled that into the price. But you get back what you would expect to get if you had a UK buyer. So really, it's very, very similar to selling domestically, except your buyer's outside of the country, and if anything happens to your parcel after it's left the UK shipping centre, you're protected. So let's have a look at an example of what this would look like to a buyer. So in this example, we've got a buyer in France is looking at eBay. We not only show them the price in pounds, but in euros as well. And we'll show them the postage cost and, if relevant, the cost of any import charges. And that's typically for buyers who are outside of EU. All of this is calculated by eBay. And what it does is it gives the buyer upfront clarity of what they'll be paying. Now, you may think, well, this could turn out to be a little bit more expensive because usually I don't take customs duties, any tax charges, anything that the buyer will be paying on import. I don't charge that, and that's up to the buyer to pay that when it arrives with them. Sometimes they're asked to pay, sometimes they're not. So maybe I'd be better off selling it myself. Sending it myself. But it's sometimes a bit of a nasty surprise for a buyer when they've ordered from a seller. They think they've paid everything, and then the postman or woman asks them to pay a little bit extra on top because there's some tax, some import duties that they haven't taken into consideration. So what we're hoping to do here is give an all-inclusive price for your buyer so there are no hidden surprises for them. So, which are the top countries that sellers are exporting to around the world using the Global Shipping Program? As you can see, quite a similar list to the countries that we saw as the top export countries, but France is a big one. Italy, USA, Ireland even. So lots of different countries there, but there are also buyers in countries like Russia who are buying through the Global Shipping Program as well. So all of the countries that you can see in dark blue on the screen are covered by the Global Shipping Program. So the main benefits for international buyers is that they can buy items from UK sellers, so they're getting access to all the great products that you're selling. The import charges are paid up front, and as I already mentioned, the items are fully tracked from the shipping centre. So if you've ever been cautious about parcels potentially going astray once they get into the postal system for the country that you're sending it to, they're fully tracked all the way. And as long as you've got the parcel safely to the shipping centre, there are additional seller protections for you in the case that people say that an item never arrived. So benefits for you as a seller, well, there's an automatic 5-star rating for postage and packaging charges if you provide free domestic postage to the UK shipping centre. You also get automatic 5-star ratings for postage time if you meet certain conditions. So obviously you've got to get it to the shipping centre on time. It's not enough to say, it's GSP order, I'll send it next week. You need to get it to the shipping centre on time. And then if there's any delays at the other end, that's fine, it doesn't affect you. You're also protected from any negative or neutral feedback and ratings lower than 5 stars due to loss or damage to your item in international transit or delayed delivery. And you're not responsible for any loss or damage by a third-party carrier once your item's in international transit. So you can see why for some sellers who might have excluded countries in the past after 1 or 2 bad experiences, GSP allows them to sell to those countries that they might have perceived as potentially risky with having those additional protections in place. So it can allow you to expand in a way that you feel a bit more in control. So just an important point to note, at this time, returns are not handled by the Global Shipping Program. So if the customer does need to return an item, you will need to sort that out directly with them. There's no hub for them to send it back to get it back to you. And when you're refunding a return, something really important to note, please bear in mind that eBay will refund the international postage part anyway. So you only have to refund the domestic postage cost and the item price. You are not expected to give a full refund for the international postage part. If you do, the buyer's potentially getting 2 refunds, one from eBay for the international postage and one from you as well. So it's best, if there's ever a problem with something through the Global Shipping Program, get in touch with eBay customer support or ask your buyer to contact eBay customer support. So for business sellers, a couple of things on returns. So your UK returns policy is going to be displayed and applied to EU buyers. And then for all sellers, and this applies to either business sellers or private sellers, because private sellers use the global shipping program as well. As I've just said, you're not expected to refund the full amount. They will then sort things out directly with eBay on the international postage. You're not going to be billed for it twice. Okay? So who pays for what? Looking at the buyer experience. So here you can see what it actually looks like to the buyer. It might be a little bit small on the screen, but you can see there's a different icon in there that shows that it's a global shipping program product. So the program is displayed prominently to the buyer, as well as the international postage costs and any duties or taxes when searching and viewing the item. Then when they get to checkout, they've got a clear view of the postage costs and any import charges if they're included. So that takes away any nasty surprises that they might have when they have to pay some tax or import charges on there. And as all items in the global shipping program that are sent from the UK shipping centre use a fully tracked service, both the buyer and you, the seller, are able to monitor the progress of the item. And we use a fully tracked service so that our customer support team can help to resolve any queries from both buyers and sellers. So, how do you find out if you're eligible and how to opt in? Well, for your listing to be eligible, it must be located in the UK, it must be listed on ebay.co.uk, PayPal must be an accepted payment method, the package can't weigh more than 30 kilos, and any single dimensions, so that's height, width, depth, can't be any more than 120 centimetres. Please note, if you offer free returns on your domestic listings, then this is going to show up as free returns for your international buyers. So if you don't want to offer this, you can either change your domestic listings to paid returns or switch to setting up your own international postage options. But it's going to be replicating your returns policy on any listings that you do with GSP. Now, as you'd expect, there are some prohibited items. There are some things that you can't send through air services, some things that can't go through the post, some very obvious things, and these are automatically excluded from the global shipping program. When we started up this service, we did get a lot of queries from sellers saying, but I sell batteries, you're not going to automatically add me into GSP, are you? That could cause problems. And people were a little bit concerned about that. We know which items can't be sent internationally through this service, so they're automatically prohibited. And so GSP, as long as you have listed in the correct category and you've described it correctly, it's going to automatically be excluded. Problems can happen where people have put things in the wrong category. And so you might have, for instance, live plants being listed in the wrong category into a category which is okay for GSP. Maybe it's garden ornaments or something like that, and you've put it in there by mistake. It's possible it could end up having GSP on there. So it's a really important reason for you to list in the correct category. Okay, so to opt into GSP, you go to My eBay, go to the Account tab and select Site Preferences. You'll see that there's an option to offer the global shipping program, and that's in your postage settings. When you go there, if you haven't already opted in, there'll be a landing page that you come to that just says a little bit more about GSP and how it works. You click on Start Now, and you'll have the choice to add GSP. So you can choose here to either add it to all your active eligible listings, or you can choose to select the individual listings at a later date, and that's going to mean that you need to select it when you're completing the listing form. And this can also be managed through the bulk edit tool. So if all of your items are eligible, we just recommend that you add GSP to all your active listings. It's much easier than going through and doing it individually. So once you've opted in, depending on which of the options you choose, either to add it automatically to all your active listings or to do it individually, you'll get different success messages, as they're called. And if you didn't choose to update your listings at the point of opting in, we'll show you how to update all of your listings through the bulk edit tool. So here's how you do it. You either go to My eBay, go to Seller Hub. I'm assuming that all of you are using Seller Hub now. There's some fantastic tools in there. So please, if you haven't checked out Seller Hub already, do use that for this. It's much easier to go find. So you go to Listings, and then go to Active. You can then use the tick box to select which listings you want to add GSP to, and then click Edit. And then the bulk editor is going to open up. So then click Edit Fields. When the drop-down menu opens up, select P&P International. And then the option to add GSP to your listings will only appear if you've opted into GSP. So you've got to go and opt in first, otherwise you're not going to get this option appearing. So if you can't see the option to add GSP to your listings, you'll need to go back and opt in. If you've already opted in, then the screen that you've got in front of you is going to appear. You then select from the drop-down Add to All and click Save and Close. And that's it. So you've opted into Global Shipping Program, you've added this option to your listings, and now just wait for your first international sale. So when it does sell, you just need to post your items to the UK Shipping Centre, and the buyer address that you get will be the UK Shipping Centre address with a unique identifier. So for example, if you already use Click and Collect at Argos, you'll know there's a unique identifier there that allows the shipping centre to identify your parcel. So it's really, really important that that unique identifier code is on that order. Okay, so it's got to be in your address label. Otherwise, they're not going to know who it's for, and it could end up just being disposed of, and then we have an unhappy customer on our hands. Once it's at the UK Shipping Centre, it's processed very quickly and then gets passed on to an international carrier service to send to the buyer using a tracked service. So the unique identifier is going to be shown on your sold item address. The delivery address will always be the same. There's just one shipping centre. So just add the buyer's name and the unique, it just adds on the buyer's name and a unique identifier. So really, really important that you make sure that that's being used. So should you be using the Global Shipping Program or posting internationally yourself? Well, we put up just a ready reckoner for you on how the different things work. So the main differences between GSP and arranging your own international postage are that eBay sets the international postage costs and any applicable duties, taxes, etc. You, the seller, are protected from any item not received or lost or damaged parcel issues once the item has been safely delivered to the UK shipping centre. So it's relatively pain-free and an easy way to sell internationally. So it's a good way to get started. It's also a good way to protect yourself if you perceive some countries as potentially being a problem for you. Okay, so let's now move on, and we will look at how do you set up international postage yourself. Now, if you're already selling internationally, bear with us, and we'll get to a few other points on international selling after we've covered this. But if you're new to setting up international postage, this section is going to be great for you. So when you are selling internationally, trust becomes even more important to your buyers. So they might be used to different selling practices and regulations than what you're used to. So do make sure that your listings clearly describe what it is that you're offering. And you should communicate proactively to reassure your buyers of your reliability. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to do that for every transaction, but maybe the first few is going to be a learning experience for you, so you can see what kind of questions international buyers might have. Some carriers do arrange for customs clearance, and this often includes customs documentation, paying duties, taxes, fees, so make sure that your listing clearly states this to the buyer. It's also important to consider how you're going to handle returns, and again, clearly state this within your listing using the relevant sections, obviously. So be really clear on all of those. With international postage services, consider offering multiple options, as some buyers will pay more for a fast and convenient service, while others will prefer a cheaper and slower postage solution. If it's something that is time sensitive, they may want to get expedited shipping out to them. If it's something that they're happy to wait a week or so for, then a slower service might be good because it's much cheaper for them. A few things to bear in mind. So postage tracking and delivery confirmation can give you and your buyer visibility around the order status and delivery dates so the buyers feel a bit more confident. It also reassures you that you know where the parcel is. And proof of delivery is also important for seller protection cases. If you sell valuable items, do consider insuring them. Check with your carrier for insurance options or contact a third-party postal insurance provider for your insurance coverage. But this is really for the most valuable items. There'll be some items that you sell that are low enough value that even if it was a domestic customer, you'd probably say, look, okay, I'll send you another one or I'll just give you a refund. Because it's sometimes more trouble than it's worth. So sometimes you just want the easy, quick option. If you're posting your items to non-EU countries, you've got to decide yourself whether you want to offer your buyers a customs and duties paid delivery. This does make things easier for buyers and helps to drive your conversion. Offering customs and duties paid postage service might mean that you have to deal with indirect tax implications in the country that you're posting your items to, or you may decide you just simply want to charge for the postage cost, and then any taxes and anything else is up to the buyer to sort out themselves. But it is very much down to you as a seller to make those decisions yourself. It would be very easy for eBay to be quite prescriptive about things and say, no, you've always got to do it this way. But people sell everything from farm equipment through to nail accessories to pet hutches to all sorts of things. So you really need to decide what is going to be working best for you and also what works best for your customers. So customs, duties and taxes. Well, when you sell and post within the EU, you've got to be aware of and comply with your VAT obligations. Once you start getting to a good level of sales internationally, you might start breaking through that VAT threshold in different countries. So it's important that you talk to your accountant, get some tax advice if you start doing a lot of business to, say, Germany, for example, that might put you over the German VAT threshold. Be aware of special territories within the EU. Goods coming from outside these countries are processed in the same way as goods imported from outside the EU. Legally, the importer of record, so that's the person in whose name the goods are imported, is responsible for taking care of any import and customs duties, fees, etc. And who the importer is depends on your postal offer. So you should specify clearly in your listing whether you or your buyer is responsible for customs, duties, taxes and procedures. Of course, if you're doing this through GSP, it's very clear, and you don't need to worry about that. But if you do decide that you want to sell to some countries yourself, it's worth bearing this in mind. And these can differ significantly if you sell and post your items within the EU or to non-EU countries. And your item could be held up in customs if the documentation that you provide is incomplete or incorrect. You might need to pay additional costs if items don't clear customs and have to be returned. And your carrier must arrange for a customs broker in advance. Most carriers provide the service automatically. So, lots to think about. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of how this actually works. So let's have a look at how to set up international postage on existing listings. So in this example, we'll be looking to add all European destinations to listings. And the best way to do this is to bulk edit, to update your listings to include European postage. So you would go to My eBay, Selling, go to Seller Hub, click on Listings, click on Active. Then you select your listings and click on Edit. Choose the listings that you want to change and then click on the Edit Fields drop-down. Then choose the P&P International from the drop-down. And then you can tick Europe from the list of international options and add your postage option and price. So in this example, we've selected Royal Mail International Standard and £10 as a postage cost to all countries. So remember, the postage cost is what your buyer is going to be charged in this country. If you want to be more specific about individual countries, you can set up the international rate tables, which we'll go on to show you later. if in Europe there are certain countries that you want to exclude, you can go to your account, go to Account, Site Preferences, Exclude Postage Locations from your listing. So this is if you want to exclude countries that you don't want to post to yourself. Maybe you've had a problem with them in the past. Maybe you're only allowed to sell within certain markets. And there are some countries that you can't go into that territory because there's another distributor in that country. So you want to make sure that you don't get in trouble with the brand or the manufacturer that you've got a relationship with by selling in somebody else's territory. So this is a good example of why you might want to exclude countries, even if ideally you would like to export to those countries. Maybe there are some brand restrictions around it. So we go from exclude postage from your listings, then select the countries that you don't want to post to, but you need to click on Show All Countries next to Europe to get that to open up. And then select the individual countries that you want to exclude from this list. So in this example, we just picked some at random, so we've picked Albania and Andorra. You can expand any of the regions and choose the specific countries that you want to exclude. If you choose to use worldwide postage options, you can exclude whole regions. So if you're not able to sell to the Americas, you could exclude all of that. Then you click Apply All, and your listings are going to be updated. So you're good to go, and then all your listings will be available for the European buyers in the countries that you want to sell to. Now, if you're thinking, I use business policies, can I do it that way instead? Well, if you have business policies enabled for your account, you can also use the business policies to edit the postage settings. So you would go to My eBay, go to Selling, Seller Hub, go to Listings, Active, and then select Business Policies. Not everybody has got business policies enabled on their account, so this option might not be open to you. But if you do have business policies, you'll see it there. So then your postage policies can be filtered and edited. And to add the international postage settings to your active listings, you simply edit the postage policies. So the Edit Postage Policy page looks like the postage details section in the listing form. So add the international postage as you've seen in the previous examples that we used in this presentation. Okay, we'll pause for breath. And now we're going to go on to using international postage rate tables. So when you're posting internationally, you can choose to set up international rate tables. And this allows you to differentiate your pricing by country and by delivery method. It's important that you set out these rate tables so that you shouldn't use your listing description to talk to your buyers about any surcharges that will apply. So this is useful if you're going to have different postage costs for each country. So it might not work for you to set one postage cost across Europe. And previously, you'd used your listing description to set out all the different charges that you would have for each country. The international rate tables, that allows you to do that all for the buyer, so they're only going to see the cost that's for delivering to their country. They're not going to have to check the listing description. And with lots of people buying on mobile phones these days, well, I think we all know that people don't check the listing description in every single transaction. Some people just say, yep, that's what I want to buy, and they place their order, and then they find there's a different postage cost because they're in a different country. So this allows you to display the correct cost to your buyer without having to rely on tables within the listing description. So you can set up international postage costs in 3 different ways. You can do it by item, you can do it by weight, or you can do it by adding a surcharge. So let's go through each of those one by one. We're doing it by item. With this option, the postage cost to a buyer depends on where you're posting the item to and the delivery method that you use. So, for example, you can choose to charge £7.75 for economy delivery to France and £10 for Italy. And of course, that's just an example. If you choose this option, the postage cost to the buyer won't vary based on the weight of the package. So this is useful if the kinds of products that you sell are fairly similar in weight. So maybe you always are able to put things in a jiffy bag and send it over there. So you're always going to be of a similar weight. Obviously, if you've got a really big product range, some items are very small, some are quite bulky, that option might not work for you. Maybe doing it by weight is the way to do it. So you would set a fixed base cost for any destination and delivery method, and then you add an additional fixed amount per kilogram. So, for example, for an item posted to Germany, you can charge £5.50 plus 50p per kilogram on top. The other way to do it is by surcharge. So this lets you set a fixed base cost and then add a surcharge to it for any destination and delivery method. So, for example, you can charge an additional £5 for standard delivery to Europe on top of your existing domestic cost. So let's see how we do this. Set up rate tables in your account. You go to My eBay, go to Account, Site Preferences, Postage and Packing Preferences, Use Postage Rate Tables. And then you can choose to set up your rate tables by item, weight or surcharge and set different amounts at a regional or country level. And you need to think carefully about what you're selling and the best option for you. So in this example, we're selling products that have got the same weight, so we're using the per item option and charging a flat rate of £10 for Europe. The price shown to the buyer when using rate tables will override anything that you previously set for postage costs for that international country. If you want to set up by weight, of course you're going to have to put the item weights on your listings. If you haven't put the weight of your item on your listing, how on earth is eBay going to know how much to charge if you're using the weight option? So you really must do that. It's also important to put the weight in there for any listings that are going through GSP, because we need to know how much to charge for the international postage. So weight and dimensions, very useful for GSP as well. If you want to set an international surcharge or item postage cost by country, you can select the down arrow to expand the region. And once you've set up your rate tables, you need to use the bulk edit feature to update your listing. So you go to My eBay, Selling, going into Seller Hub, go to Listings, and then Active. Then you select your listings and click on Edit. You can then edit the fields, choose the P&P International from the drop-down, and then make sure you select the checkbox to use your rate tables here and leave in the previous postage service and cost. Your rate tables are going to override the postage costs that you put into the service if the destination is included in both options. And remember that postage rate tables are going to override any postage exclusions. So if you've previously excluded South America, for example, and then you add a cost for this region in your rate table, we're going to assume that selling to South America is okay now because you put a postage price there. So that will then start to appear to South American buyers. And this has caught out a couple of people in the past. They say, but hang on, I excluded that country. No, you added some postage costs to that country, which then undid it all. So rate tables, if you're doing it yourself, well, make sure you match it back to the countries that you want to exclude. If you're asking somebody else to do it for you, ask them to check. Ask them to check what countries you've already excluded so they don't put a postage cost in there and you find that you're selling internationally to that country. So how can you tailor your international postage options so that you can post to some countries yourself and use GSP for the others? So the easiest way to do this is to talk about a couple of scenarios because this could get really complicated. So we just picked a couple of scenarios too. So one scenario is selling items yourself to English-speaking countries such as USA, Canada, Australia, and then using GSP for the others, or posting items yourself to Europe and using GSP for the rest of the world. There may also be some countries that you've excluded in the past that you want to consider using GSP for, as eBay are going to provide you with extra seller protection. So let's have a look at how to set this up on your account. So we've assumed that you've already set up your account for postage options for European destinations and made sure that you are already opted into the global shipping program in your site preferences. To use the global shipping program for your excluded countries, go to Site Preferences, Postage and Packing Preferences, exclude postage locations from your listings, and you can exclude entire regions or specific countries that you don't wish to post to. To use GSP for these excluded countries, simply tick Override My Shipping Exclusions for Global Shipping Program eligible items at the bottom of this page, and then hit Apply to save changes. And then you've made all your eligible listings available to millions of international buyers. So it's actually fairly straightforward. So to summarize, we've got a couple of options for international postage. You can either do it yourself, do 100% of it yourself. You can use the global shipping program only. So in that case, you're just posting to a UK address, and then eBay takes it from there. Or you can use a combination of the two. Now, at the start of the webinar, I talked about advanced international selling, where you would be listing directly on other sites. So let's have a look in a bit more detail about how that would work. And then we're going to come back and talk about a few other important things to note if you're selling internationally. So, advanced listing process. You create separate listings for each eBay site. This allows you to then tailor your pricing for each country. So if you think you can get more for an item in a different country, this is a great way to do it. If you do basic international selling, it's going to be the same price for every market. But you might find out there's a lot of demand and no supply in one country, and you can actually charge a premium. So that gives you the option to do that there. Search visibility. So they're going to appear in default search results on that country's eBay site. As long as you have translated it, so if you were listing on the German site and you've listed it in German, from the buyer's point of view, you're going to look like a German seller to them. Now, if they dig a little bit deeper, they'll find you're a UK seller, but it can take away any concern they might have about, oh, I don't want to buy from an international seller. It's all in their language. Now, you might also be thinking, well, how do I handle my questions? If I get German questions, I haven't got a German speaker in the office. This is where tools like Google Translate or there's a Bing translator, they can come in really handy so you can get across the gist of what your customer's asking and then give them a decent response. It's not going to be the same as having a human translate it, but it does. It does the job for most people. Fees, this is where it gets a little bit different. So you pay the appropriate selling fees for that country. But if you've got a featured or anchor shop subscription, within that subscription there are some discounted fees for selling internationally. So have a look at the fees. If you're not sure about the fees, check them on the help or the seller center for the country you're selling in. So some benefits for selling internationally. Well, you've got a lot more control. The categories and subcategories on eBay don't always match 100% on different sites, so you can make sure that you're selecting and selling in the right ones. You can then select the item specifics and options for that market, which make sense. So things like shoe sizes, yeah, you might have it down as a 5 in the UK, but people are going to be searching for a 38 in Europe. You've got the option to translate titles and descriptions. You can tailor your prices. And also, if, for example, you have a shop subscription in a different country, you can use the promotional tools, such as Promotions Manager, to help boost your sales. So a few points to note about selling internationally. You can use your existing eBay account. You've already got higher selling limits on that account because you're established. You've got your feedback ratings on there. You don't need to start from scratch again. You can use your account. Set your PayPal account up to get international payments. There is a point to think about with international performance standards, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But very important, if you're selling internationally using advanced international selling, you're going to be setting up a price for postage costs in that country. What could happen is that a buyer finds both of your listings, your listing that's on the UK site and your listing that's on their domestic site, so maybe the German site. eBay's going to look at that and say, well, hang on a minute, that's a duplicate listing because it's exactly the same item from the same seller, same price, etc. That's a duplicate, and you might get a warning about that. So easiest thing to do is if you are selling directly on another site, exclude that country from your UK listing. So if you're going to set it up in German, on the German site, use Germany as one of your excluded countries on your UK listing. So let's have a look at how we would do that on a different site. So you'd go to another site, and we'll use eBay.com because that's nice and easy and it's in English. So you log into the international site with your UK selling ID. So it's very similar to listing if you were doing it for the UK. You complete the listing form as if you were a US seller, but there's one thing that you do differently. So when you look at the postage options, look under the domestic ones, and there is an option in there for shipping from outside the US. So even though the item's listed directly on the US site, and you're setting, what you're going to be doing is setting domestic postage, the item location is the UK. So you need to select the postage service shipping from outside of the US. You can then exclude any countries that you do not want to send to using the exclude shipping options. Now you might think, well, why do I want to do that? Because if you've got your listing on eBay.com, you might want to exclude some other countries that you're prepared to ship to from eBay.com. So you might think, oh, I'll pick up some Canadian buyers from there. So maybe just think through which countries you want to have on that listing, but it is very, very similar to listing in the UK. For most people, easy way to get started is to go to the English-speaking site, so ebay.com, ebay.com.au, ebay.ca for Canada, and just do it with the English flows. So, a few important things we need to note, regardless of how you're selling internationally, and I know I've given you lots and lots of options here. So, seller levels. What impact could selling internationally have on your performance? So there's 4 regions. And if you've gone into your dashboard, you might have seen that there's a drop down where you can look at your performance in different regions. So you've got UK and Ireland, Germany, Austria and Switzerland, USA and global. Any feedback that you get from buyers depends on where the buyer is located. So if you have buyers who are in the rest of Europe, that's going to go into the global one, not your domestic one. So your performance as a seller is only impacted by the transactions that you make within each of these regions. Okay? Detailed seller ratings affect your seller performance in the region where the buyer who submitted the rating is located. So it doesn't matter on what site the transaction takes place. All right, I should have moved that slide along so that you could see all of that. I'll just pause while you have a quick look. And then your domestic seller performance status isn't affected by buyers located outside of your region. So even if you're selling on .co.uk and you get a French buyer and they have a problem, something goes wrong, that would be impacting on the global status, not your UK and Ireland status. It can impact your domestic seller performance can then impact your standing in other countries. So if you fall below standard in the UK or Ireland and receive a selling limit or a suspension, that's going to apply to all of your eBay sites because we want to make sure you get your domestic account in order before you then start building up your business with other countries too. Okay, so how to check your international seller level? Very easy from your seller dashboard. So a few other points to note. Money back guarantee. We've got money back guarantee in other sites as well. Very similar process, but best practice is really just respond to the buyer as quickly as you would for the UK, bearing in mind there might be contacting you in a different language. If you really want to see what the policies are for other sites, do have a look on the other eBay sites to see what the money back guarantee works like that. If you find, oh crikey, this one's all in Polish, there is an option if you use Google Chrome to actually translate the page into your own language so that you can actually read it and you can understand what's being said there. With selling limits, if you use your UK account to list directly on other sites, so this only really applies to advanced international selling, the additional overseas listings is going to come out of your selling allowance. Now, this has caught a couple of people out where they say, right, I've got 10,000 listings in the UK. I'm going to put all my listings across France, Germany, Spain, US, Australia, and they start doing it for one country, and they get a message that says, you've hit your listing allowance. Oh, crikey, that's going to hold me back. So if you are going to be expanding very quickly, make sure that you request some higher selling allowances. Okay? So a checklist for selling internationally. So if you're doing basic, that's the easy one. Select the countries that you want to sell to. Choose the products you want to sell abroad. Have a little look at the tax laws and policies of your new markets, especially applies if it's outside of EU. Think about how you're going to handle your postage. Do you want to use the global shipping program, or do you want to use your own international postage costs? And then edit your listings. So I've shown you the process to edit your listings. Don't worry, we are going to share a replay after this. I know we've covered a lot of information today, so we can give you that replay, and you can come back and watch this again later. If you're doing advanced international selling, check the fees for selling on the other eBay sites. Make sure that you've got PayPal as a payment method. I think most people do. Request a higher selling allowance if you are planning to expand rapidly. Think about whether you'll translate if you're listing on non-English speaking sites. Obviously, if you're selling to Australia or US, you probably don't need to. Remove the postage costs to relevant countries from your listings on .co.uk to avoid duplicate listings. Don't get caught out by this. It's easy to get caught out. So think about if you're selling directly on another site, you need to exclude it from your UK listings. So lots of information to take in, as I know. So if you want to have a bit more of a look at what you need to do to sell internationally, you can go on to Seller Centre, and I'll leave this up on screen so you can write down the website address there. But if you want to find Seller Centre, if you haven't seen it before, go to the eBay homepage from a desktop or laptop. Scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, and you'll see there's a number of different options down there and links. Look for the one that says Seller Centre. Go on to that and then select Business. You've got the opportunity to select the type of content that you read, depending on whether you're a business or whether you're a private user of the site. Select Business and then just type in International, and the pages for selling internationally will come up, or you can use some of the navigation links down the left-hand side. So lots to take in, I know. I know the team's been taking questions that you've been typing in as we go. We've done our very best to answer as many as we possibly can in the time. But if you do still have questions about selling internationally, on the eBay community, we have got a dedicated discussion thread where you can go and ask questions about selling internationally. So go to Selling on eBay and then look for the webinars, and there'll be a discussion thread in there. So we'll be happy to take your questions over the next week or so if you already know what your questions are. Of course, if you've got questions a bit later on, then there are international discussion boards, or you can always contact eBay customer support if you've got stuck on anything, or if you've got questions around getting higher selling limits or how GSP works. So we just want to make sure that this works for you. So I'll just leave the line open for a couple more minutes so we can take some of these questions. As I say, we probably won't get to all of them today, but you can come back to the eBay community and we will answer as many of your questions as we possibly can. So I hope you've enjoyed this eBay for Business webinar. Watch out for an email in your inbox over the next couple of weeks about our next one that's going to be running at the end of April. So do make a note to join us there, where we'll be talking about growing your sales on eBay. Have a great day. Goodbye.